asked, not contacted, not received, but hired. In the context of a disappearance, that choice of language is anything but casual. It points to a transaction, cold, calculated, and intentional. There is a buyer who needed information they couldn't obtain on their own, and a seller who possessed exactly that information. Between them is an exchange, one with a price, one driven by purpose. And what makes it truly unsettling is this: the information involved wasn't ordinary. It was deeply personal, highly specific, the kind of knowledge that could only come from someone who had been close, someone who had once been trusted inside that household. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for over 44 days. She is 84 years old and relies on daily cardiac medication to stay alive. Since her disappearance, there has been no confirmed proof of life, not once, not on any single day throughout this entire investigation. The ransom notes were not sent to her family, but to newsrooms. Both deadlines came and went, and each time, there was only silence. At the same time, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos went on national television and stated clearly that he believes this crime was planned, that Nancy's home was deliberately targeted, built around information from the inside, possibly even purchased. And now, the FBI is requesting surveillance footage from the neighborhood, focusing specifically on 2 dates in January, suggesting that key movements or preparations may have taken place well before the disappearance. January 11th and January 24th, dates that fall weeks before Nancy vanished. That detail alone changes everything. It suggests investigators are no longer focused solely on the abductor, but on someone who may have been watching her long before she disappeared, studying her routine, observing her life, learning her patterns. This is no longer just a search, it's a deeper unraveling. A dedicated task force is now in place, made up of 5 Pima County Sheriff's deputies alongside multiple FBI agents working the case full-time. The investigation isn't slowing down, it's tightening, becoming more precise with every passing day. In this video, we turn our attention to one specific connection tied to this case. A link grounded in public records, confirmed relationships, and a criminal background documented within Arizona's own court system, yet largely overlooked by mainstream coverage. The name is Dominic Evans. He is 48 years old, a 5th-grade teacher based in Tucson, Arizona. But that's only part of the story. He is also the co-founding drummer of a band called Early Black, a group he formed back in 2007 with Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, Tommaso. And according to Arizona Pima County court records, publicly referenced by the investigative account JLR Investigates on X, his past includes serious charges: felony burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement, and DUI, a history that raises questions few have fully explored. Evans has already been interviewed by investigators, something he personally confirmed to the New York Times. According to his own account, he spent about 40 minutes speaking with both the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department. During that time, he stated that he was at home with his family on the night Nancy disappeared. Since then, there has been no further contact. Importantly, no law enforcement agency has named him a suspect, and no accusations have been made linking him directly to this case. In fact, the entire Guthrie family, including Tommaso, has officially been cleared by the sheriff. That's not what this video is about. It's not about accusations, it's about alignment. About placing documented facts side by side, in sequence, out in the open, and asking the questions that naturally follow. Everything presented here is verifiable. And by the time you reach the end, you'll understand why this name continues to surface in the conversation. Because this case is shifting. The FBI is no longer looking only at the moment of abduction, they are now investigating what may have happened weeks before it. And that detail changes everything. Recently, the FBI formally requested that residents near Nancy Guthrie's home in Catalina Foothills provide security camera footage from 2 specific dates, January 11th and January 24th. Dates that now stand at the center of this timeline, and may hold the key to understanding how this all began. Both dates fall weeks before Nancy disappeared on February 1st. Investigators have not publicly explained why those exact days were chosen, but they don't need to. The implication is clear. Someone may have been there in advance, watching, studying the area, learning the rhythms of the neighborhood. observing when Nancy was likely alone, identifying camera angles, noting blind spots, understanding how the property looked from the street after dark. That kind of behavior isn't random. It isn't impulsive. It points to reconnaissance, to preparation for a crime that was carefully planned, not suddenly decided. And that aligns directly with what Sheriff Nanos has said from the very beginning. This was targeted. Former FBI and CIA officer Tracy Walder reinforced that idea even more directly, stating on camera that this is not the kind of home someone simply stumbles upon and chooses at random. So the real question becomes unavoidable. Who pointed them to that house? Catalina Foothills is a large residential area. Countless streets, hundreds of homes, many of them belonging to elderly residents living alone. For a criminal to single out one specific house, on one specific street, and focus on one 84-year-old woman, the mother-in-law of a science teacher, for what appears to be weeks of surveillance, suggests something more. It suggests direction. It suggests prior knowledge. Because targeting that precise would require details. Who she was, when she was most vulnerable, what her daily routine looked like, where the cameras were placed, and where they weren't. That's the kind of information the FBI is pointing to, something that may have been exchanged, something obtained intentionally. And intelligence that specific, that layered, doesn't come from a stranger passing by. Here's what is publicly known about Tommaso Caioni. He is 50 years old, originally from Italy, and has been living in Tucson for many years. He works as a science teacher and is married to Annie Guthrie, Nancy's eldest daughter. On the evening of January 31st, Nancy had dinner at their home. Later that night, she was dropped off at 9:48 p.m., making him potentially one of the last people to see her before she disappeared. In the early days of the investigation, journalist Ashley Banfield raised his name on air, citing a law enforcement source who suggested that Nancy's son-in-law could be considered a potential prime suspect. The claim quickly gained attention, especially as it referenced a possible connection involving Annie's car and the timeline surrounding Nancy's final known movements. However, that narrative did not hold. On February 16th, Sheriff Chris Nanos responded directly with a formal public statement, making it clear that the entire Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, had been fully cleared as possible suspects. He emphasized that the family had been cooperative throughout the investigation and showed no indication of involvement. There was no criminal record, no verified motive, and even the widely circulated rumors about gambling debts were investigated and found to have no credible basis. The power of attorney document that circulated online was reviewed by legal professionals and ultimately described as completely routine. And this is the moment to pause. The attention placed on Tommaso Caioni is understandable. He was among the last to see Nancy, the family connection is real, and on the surface, the questions seem justified. But that line of thinking looks at the situation in only one dimension, while a more revealing angle sits right beside it. The question may not be whether Tommaso was directly involved, but rather who exists within his circle, who has been close enough, long enough, to know the details that matter. And more importantly, whether anyone in that circle has a documented history that aligns with the kind of crime the FBI is now describing. Because there is one name that stands out. In April 2007, in Tucson, Arizona, Tommaso Caioni co-founded a band called Early Black. This wasn't a short-lived project. The band recorded music, maintained a presence, and remained connected over nearly 2 decades. At the center of that original lineup, from the very beginning, was co-founding drummer Dominic Evans. What often gets overlooked is what a 17-year relationship like that really means. It's not casual. It involves rehearsing in each other's homes, traveling together, sharing money, organizing performances, and maintaining constant communication over years. It means being present in each other's lives, meeting partners, meeting family members, becoming part of a trusted inner circle without even trying. That kind of proximity naturally leads to knowledge, not because it was sought out, but because it was simply there to be seen. Evans himself confirmed to the New York Times that he first learned about Nancy's disappearance through Instagram, and that he immediately reached out to Tommaso Caioni to offer his support. Evans himself stated that he had only met Nancy once, back in 2011, making it clear there was no close personal relationship between them. But that's not where the focus shifts. What he does have is a long-standing 17-year relationship with her son-in-law, Tommaso. And that distinction matters. Because the profile the FBI is pointing toward doesn't require direct access to Nancy, it points to someone connected to the person who knows her world. Someone close enough to Tommaso to understand the rhythms of his household, his family, and the environment surrounding Nancy's life. Through a connection like that, information doesn't need to be actively sought, it can be absorbed over time. Details about routines, living arrangements, family dynamics, all of it becomes visible simply by being present long enough, trusted enough. And that's where documented history begins to intersect with proximity. According to Arizona Pima County court records, publicly cited by the investigative account JLR Investigates on X, Evans has a criminal history that includes charges such as felony burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement, and DUI. These records have been referenced across multiple outlets as originating from Arizona's public court system. However, it's important to be precise. These are public records, not statements from law enforcement connecting him to this specific case. No agency has made that claim. Still, the nature of those charges carries weight. In Arizona, felony burglary involves unlawful entry into a structure with the intent to commit a crime inside. First-degree residential burglary is classified as a Class II felony, among the most serious property crimes under state law. A record like that reflects more than theory. It reflects decisions about how to enter a space, when to do it, how to move within it without detection. These are not abstract ideas. They are actions that require planning, awareness, and execution. That history isn't limited to one type of offense. Burglary is one thing, unlawful entry, calculated, deliberate. But robbery is different. Robbery is direct. It involves confrontation, the use or threat of force, a moment where something is taken from another person face to face. Then there's theft, not a single incident, but multiple occurrences, suggesting a pattern over time rather than a one-time mistake. Even the DUI remains part of the record, included here for accuracy. But one charge stands out more than the rest: embezzlement. Because in the context of this investigation, that detail carries a different kind of weight. Embezzlement is not a crime you commit against a stranger. It requires access, legitimate access, granted because someone trusted you. It means being placed in a position of responsibility, being allowed into a system, into finances, into something of value. And then making the decision to quietly turn that trust into personal gain. Trusted access, exploited for money. That is the structure of embezzlement. Now place that next to what the FBI has indicated in this case. Someone was hired to provide inside information. Someone who had access. Someone who was trusted. Someone who was paid. The pattern begins to mirror itself. The mechanism feels familiar. One version of it appears in public court records as embezzlement. The other is now being examined in the context of a far more serious investigation. The other version, within the context of this investigation, leads to a charge that has not been filed. This video is not claiming that the two are connected. It is pointing out that they reflect the same kind of decision, made by the same kind of profile. And that overlap doesn't simply disappear because it is uncomfortable to examine. Dominic Evans spoke to the New York Times in late February. He was direct, and by all accounts, deeply affected. His family had been harassed. Online speculation escalated to the point where individuals showed up outside his home in Tucson. He and his wife, Andrea, a school principal, reportedly hid inside their bedroom